I'm Hamid. I am a MIT Sloan MBA. I've been working in consulting for years, and in web, mobile, social, everything from business process engineering to developing digital technologies. After the consulting world, I went and I ran digital for large organizations, one in financial services, another in the restaurant space, major player. And now I'm at a Fortune 50 financial services firm, and I've helped create an innovation lab for them. And our approach to new business for the corporations to actually develop startups that are funded by the organization and that are strategically tied to the organization, but is, at least at this stage, completely separate. Working on a project right now that's trying to create portable benefits for 1099 workers. Lots of people are hopping jobs in addition to freelancers becoming a much larger force. And as that force grows, one of the things that are sort of being left behind is benefits. This idea of benefits that are packaged, that are provided, as well as that can be portable from one job to the next. And so basically, freelancers are left without any sort of safety net of any kind. And so we're trying to create a business and an opportunity that helps people when they're on their own. So in terms of really it comes down to understanding the needs and the basic problem that they have. So we understand at a high level what this market is and what their general challenges are, and even within that, it's like millions and millions of people. So we kind of segment within that. So a landscaper has different problems and needs than a tech freelancer in Cambridge, for example. So not only do you target the 1099 worker in our case, but also how they divide up and what their needs are. But really, it comes down to talking to as many people as you can. If you look at your customer and you figure out what their life is like, what their challenges are they organized, are they not, where are their gaps, what are they missing, and how much do they care? And when you figure out how much of a problem it is and how much they care about a certain problem, you get a sense of how you could potentially monetize something in terms of what are they willing to pay for this problem. There's a lot of problems that they can just solve on their own, or that they can get free tools or just sort of cobble something together. But in their universe of challenges, what are the challenges that is problematic enough for them to be willing to pay for something? In terms of the distribution channel or how a customer, there's a couple of ways to do it. We're part of a much larger organization, so we have one advantage, which is existing distribution channels. So we'll leverage those, but there's also a tremendous amount of this that is done word of mouth, and so therefore it's available on the web. It would obviously be a digital offering. It would be something they could sign up for on their own, and how they would find out about it would be sort of typical marketing techniques of social media, search, word of mouth, and then as revenue is generated and as budgets increase, then more advertising in different channels. There are a lot of, we're in an interesting time where there's a lot of technologies and a lot of capabilities that are built everywhere, and a lot of times I see really, really smart people with really good ideas coming up with solutions that are looking for problems. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to get somebody to pay for something, they have to have a problem solved. So you may have a cool thing, but if you offer that cool thing to me and I look at it saying, well, that's really great, but I don't actually have this issue and I don't really know why I would want this, and therefore I don't know why I would take my hard-earned money and give it to you for this thing. So it's really important to understand that if you have a solution, it's got to be solving something. I mean, you went into this discovery in order to solve a problem. But generally speaking, that problem is people have that problem. Like somebody has that problem, or some institution has that problem. And so I think it's just taking the thinking a little bit further, which is that, well, the reason you discovered this new drug, this new technology, this new capability, was that you were solving some sort of problem, in theory. And then it's really taking it a couple of steps further, saying, okay, well then, if this is a real problem, who has that problem? And then from that, who would be willing to pay for that problem? Let's say if you look at the iTunes store, there are, I think, 4 million apps. And a lot of them are good and a lot of them are garbage, frankly. And customers are sort of at the point now where they're not willing to give you the trust to say, okay, here's a screen grab, here's some marketing, to try your technology, understand what you have to offer, and they have to value it. So you really have to provide value before you can start charging something directly. Now, when you start thinking about charging people, there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? There's the direct charge per transaction. That's the easiest. If you offer something and people buy it, simple. A lot of times it's data that's behind the scenes, it's assets that you're collecting that you're doing a return on. In our case, we are helping by bringing a lot of different benefits to these people. So whatever it is that we sell, we take a commission off from the businesses, not from the customer. If we are helping them, okay, so there's a lot of ways to make money off your product. There are sophisticated and less sophisticated ways, and they're all valid. I think one of the things about being an entrepreneur or finding a market or looking at solving customers is that you're scrappy. You just look at any different which way you can do things. The easiest is obviously transaction. If you're selling something, and if you're making content, and that content you're getting advertising and eyeballs, or you're collecting data and you're selling that data. So there's a lot of ways, and most people know that Facebook and Google, their revenue model isn't direct, where you are paying to Google, you are paying Facebook, but they're leveraging your information. In financial services, you're providing products and service insurance or some sort of savings account or investment. Then you're not really taking money from the consumer per se. You're actually getting it from the companies, because you're sort of a lead generation engine. In other ways, you're actually collecting money for them and investing that money, and then you're making it off of fees. So there's a lot of different business models that can be applied, and I think the more complicated your product is, the more you can use multiple avenues of revenue. So you have to think through all those things in terms of what are all the things you're offering and what are all the different ways you can potentially make money off it that doesn't upset your customer. A lot of times your customer will, at a high level, it really comes down to, I mean, I know this sounds like I'm belaboring the point, but it really all comes down to the problem that you're solving and the customer who has that problem. You can start looking at that problem and start building code around, in our case, we recognize that for 1099s there's a large gap in how they do benefits and how they manage and organize their lives. And it could be understanding the entire life cycle of your customer and figuring out that maybe invoices are an issue, maybe collecting money is an issue, maybe benefits are an issue, maybe getting the next job is an issue, maybe savings is an issue. Understanding all the different elements of it and then solving each individual problem and building the product set and then collecting together. But it comes down to spending time with your customer and understanding the life cycle of what their challenges are. So in our case, we haven't gotten to that stage yet, but I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to a very iterative approach, doing little by little. So you start off with a proof of concept, you start testing with a small group of people, you start realizing where you were way off and where you have to focus. Once you sort of get to that point, you can turn it into a prototype. And the idea of a prototype would be really taking the entire problem set and life cycle. So your customer starts with you at a certain point and they finish an entire transaction or an entire experience, and they end where you want them to end, and hopefully at the end of it is some revenue that's captured. And that's at the point where you start marketing in terms of use some money to actually, whether it's Facebook or whether it's Google or whether it's online advertising or whether it's just word of mouth, but getting the word out there, figuring out other people and partners who can help distribute your product and get it in front of people, and then slowly building revenue. Obviously, if you're raising funding from venture capitalists or others, they'll give you the money, if everything works out well, to actually help you get the resources to market and distribute your product and get it out in front of more people. And it's a very slow, iterative process where you're collecting revenue, and then the revenue sort of reinforces itself, and investment comes in, and then the more money you have, the more you can distribute, the more you can market, the larger number of people you can go after. You start looking at your total addressable market, your serviceable addressable market, and then who your target market is, and then you just build up from there. So in a very specific example, so in our situation, it's a little bit different than your typical scenario. We're a Fortune 50 company and an innovation lab within that. So we have a particular set of needs, and then we're trying to build out businesses, and then they have specific needs. When we're talking about the business that we're creating, it's a small team that will grow over time. So it really comes down to our specific needs. If we're in the beginning of building out software, we need front-end developers, we need back-end developers, we need people who have experience with architecture, with different infrastructure, integration to legacy systems at different corporations. And then designers and maybe some marketers, to help as we're integrating, we're working with customers. As you develop, your organization gets bigger and you have different needs, so you might have more needs in finance, more in operations, more HR, different kind of places. So that's our specific business. In our innovation lab, we've actually had one PhD that we hired, and in her case, she was very analytical. Not only does she have a PhD in astrophysics, but then she was actually working in data science, building algorithms. So we were able to leverage her capabilities in mathematics, in science, in data, and being able to actually take some of her research capabilities. So in the innovation lab, there's sort of two pieces of the work. One is doing a tremendous amount of research, and the second part is actually building products that are a result of the research. So some of the research capability that you use in school is actually applicable in terms of, but skewed differently in terms of what are challenges and problems in a larger marketplace that your corporation is operating under. What kind of research can you do? Everything from customers and macro trends to specific technologies, and then as we get into talking to customers, collecting data, can you build algorithms? Can you basically work with data to be able to understand from a macro basis, which is sort of fuzzy, and make it very clear in terms of what challenges, what problems, what opportunities are, how we're leveraging data and science capabilities. So there's two aspects of skill sets that are going to be really important. One is, and people talk about it a lot, whether it's coding or whether it's data. Those are two areas that there's still not enough people, in the US at least, that corporations will be utilizing data more and more and more. And there's a long road to go from information, from data to information to wisdom. Being able to turn that data into meaningful insights and explain those insights to people who are really not as fluid with the data or with technology. And then the second skill, which is more softer, I think, so there's a lot of hard skills in terms of data and coding and development that will be needed for a really long time. A higher level skill above that, which is basically taking all that information and data, being able to visualize it, be able to analyze it and create some sort of analysis and wisdom out of it, to then, and also be able to communicate it to people who are non-technical. There's a lot of people that when you're trying to do an initiative, a lot of people you have to bring on board, and a lot of people you have to communicate with, and to take things to their level and having them understand why it's important and why your recommendations should move the project or move the initiative in a certain way. Those are all the hard skills. But that kind of leads to the soft skills. I think one thing that's really important and maybe lacking sometimes with people who are at PhDs who spend their time in research, that in organizations, a lot of the work is done in teams. It's not individuals locked away someplace and handing over a paper and then walking away. So developing a lot of softer skills, being somebody that can easily communicate an idea, explain why it's important, help drive the direction of an initiative in that way, being able to be someone who's not challenging to work with, people that you want to work with. A lot of the soft skills are actually sometimes more important than hard skills, because that's how you get initiatives to move forward.